Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. We're here on the set of Destrier to bring you a brand new series. That's right, a brand new series. This is going to be a little bit of a different series. We're going to be talking about roleplays and everything that goes into roleplays and all about that stuff. So whether you're making roleplays of your own or you're just having fun watching them, but want to know a little bit more about Beyond the Roleplay, beyond what just happens in the story and on screen, then you've come to the right place. I am here with Detailed Creative.
Hello!
And we're going to be talking today about finding the right mods for your series. So, Detailed. When you started to look for the mods for your series, what was the first thing that you thought of?
The first thing that I actually thought of when I was making a mod packs for my series is, how do I want the roleplay to be shown? Do I want it to be more of a magic one? Do I want it to be more scientific, like sci-fi? Or, for instance, the first one is like, okay, do you want other characters in like a single player one? For instance, that would require you to have custom NPCs. But then there's also things like, okay, do I want to have, just mainly a lot of it is, what are your favorite things that you've seen in your mod pack? And how can your computer handle that? Because I had a point where I realized that over some time that a lot of the mod packs that I had been using in the past weren't necessarily the best to use with recording. So getting things like Optifine or Fastcraft, I think that's for 1.7.10, things like that will really help continue having a good quality, at least a better quality, while making your videos.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think the first thing that I thought of when I looked into all of the mods and stuff was actually the versions, because whether or not you have people like being your characters running around on a server like we're on now, or if you're doing it single player, I think the most important mod is custom NPCs. Whether it's background characters or just adding ambiance, I think custom NPCs is one of the most important. So I looked first at what versions were custom NPCs in, and then I decided kind of from there.
True. It's like something that like I would think of when it came to the mods is like, as you're saying with the version, then when you're searching for these different mods, you've got to also be aware, because I had to learn this. When you're looking up a specific mod and you're like, hey, this is a mod I really like and I want to see it in this version, a lot of times you'll see a lot of websites saying, oh, we've got this specific version, but then when you go in, you don't actually see that one. That would be very confusing, and also something to be on the lookout for so you don't accidentally get something bad. But like looking through that is how you would determine, for instance, when I would determine a roleplay, I made one in 1.7.10, that would be Scalandria, and one in 1.8, which is now going to be moved up. But one thing I would look into is how many mods are shown in this one. If it's specifically like this version has very few mods, then it'll be very difficult to get the exact mods you want in the roleplay.
Definitely, for sure. I think another important thing to think about is just coming up with a list of the mods that for your roleplay, for your specific roleplay needs and story, what are the necessary mods? Be that, you know, the custom NPCs mod or different kind of a camera mod, like I have CMD cam on this server, and things like that, things that are very, very important for either technological aspects of your roleplay, like the cameras and stuff, or story aspects for your roleplay, depending on it. And then from there, generally speaking, there's a lot of different mods that add different like decorations, like we have here, Decocraft and Bibliocraft, different like foods and stuff, different animals even, like that squirrel. Excuse me, Sorry, sir, leave, please, thank you. Different, even just like cosmetics that don't really do anything, or even different weapons. This one's a fun one.
Oh, yes.
Different decorational things and stuff, but I think the major thing is coming up with a list of the most important technological and story-driven mods that you absolutely have to have.
Yes, because there's also been times where, like, on some of the roleplays that I've worked on, I ended up getting a mod that I was really happy with, and I used it, but then over time, there was a problem with it where it actually would destroy things in my world. Like, I thought it was, at first, like, maybe things that weren't built, but then after seeing that, I'm like, okay, I need to take this mod out. So there's things like that, and then also another main problem is when mods don't work, when they don't work well with each other, you have to figure out exactly what mod is working badly with the others. For this, I actually had to do a bit of looking into crash reports. Just by looking into it, be like, okay, what are the... Once you look into a crash report, you could actually learn how far each mod has been taken, like if it's been fully initialized, or if somewhere along the line it actually messed up. This is what I would do in the previous Minecraft launchers. I'm pretty sure it still works well to this day. I don't exactly know that. But one thing is to, if you're having difficulty, maybe just look up, okay, how do I deal with, or how do I look into the crash report? Because that can make things a lot easier if you're trying to figure out what exact mod did I add that changed it. Another thing I would suggest is, if you're adding a ton of mods in, be sure that a lot of the mods that you've used before, you can add those ones in and just play and see if it works. If it still works, then you can move on to the next stage, which is adding even more mods to it. If you add all the mods that you want in one instance and then try to play the game, there's a very high chance, just because of how mods are, that you're gonna see something. So starting with as much as you know, and then building on from there allows for you to deal with mods and the problems they have a lot easier.
Yeah, for sure. And I know crash reports sound really scary. Trust me, I get it. I am not very technologically smart whatsoever. However, if that kind of scares you, I would say, also, I apologize for the dogs barking in the background. Welcome to Beyond the Roleplays. This happens.
Fire on the background.
If crash logs scare you and stuff, you can always go back and, like what I did, I helped detailed here. Well, actually, I don't know if we're gonna say that, but I helped him here with some mod things going on for his series, and I, not knowing how to read a crash log, literally just put all of the mods in one at a time to try and figure out which mods had difficulties with each other, to figure out which ones we had to take out. And when you're doing that, it's important to have your list of like what is necessary, what's important, what's just like cosmetic or something, and all of that, to see, okay, this mod and this mod conflict with each other, which one of these do I have to take out? Because sometimes you do have to, they call it killing a puppy. I know that sounds really bad, but sometimes you have to kill a puppy. And I think that's a term in like film or something. You have to sacrifice a puppy and take something out even if you had wanted it, in order for another thing to work.
Okay, I'll go along with what you're saying. It's the first time I've heard of it, but I'll go along with it because you've heard of it before. But yeah.
We do not condone killing puppies. Just putting that out there.
No killing animals, especially baby animals, please. Okay, so, and another thing to consider when making, okay, what is the right mod for this roleplay? A great idea is, what do you truly envision? Like, what is the thing that you're seeing in your head when you see your roleplay? are you seeing it to be something that's like, as I said before, are you considering it to be like fantasy? Are you seeing it as like, oh, well, I want it to be a school? I want it to be a real life one? What exactly do you want? And once you figure that out, you can, because when I was looking for mods the first time, I'll just look up like, okay, mods about, and I put whatever I'm thinking about. So that's like another way that I like found different mods and things to add in. And then also, don't forget about your favorite mod packs and all the things you've seen that you want to have in your own, well, that you just want to play in a single player world.
So another thing to consider when you're picking out the mods for your series is, one, is this going to be in a single player world, and as such, what mods can your personal computer handle along with your recording? And two, if it's going to be in a server, it's better off to pick more of a lighter mod pack that many people's computers would be able to handle nowadays, just so that you're able to not have people like lagging all over the place or yourself lagging all over the place, just to help out with the recording process.
Especially like adding into that, basically just check how many mods you can use on your computer at a time. If you find yourself not being able to use like mods that like have like 30 mods in it, or like 60, then high chances are you probably should have like even less than the amount you can handle at most in your role play, because you also want to make sure there's some leeway so that it's not always so laggy. Because I'll tell you, recording A will get laggier than playing the game normally, and B, something that I thought would be fine, rain in Minecraft, that also adds to the lag. So if you ever want to shoot a scene that causes the one that has rain, you should be aware of the fact that it will get laggier.
Yes, and it also depends. Each individual mod has different weights to them. Like, say, custom NPCs by itself, if you haven't placed any NPCs, obviously, is kind of a lighter mod, as well as more player models, or even the morph mod or something. But mods like the wings mod that we have here, that add custom flight animations and all of that kind of stuff, obviously weigh a lot heavier just because of how they function and all of that. As well as mods that add a lot of small polygons in general to have to render and all of that, as well as stuff like chisels and bits. They can be a bit heavier and something for you to consider. Oh.
And another thing is that I just thought of, which is when you're adding mods to your roleplay, one thing to remember is if you have not had this mod in your roleplay before, and the mod itself makes items like blocks and all these things, it will not be anywhere on the set that you have walked around. So everything that you have loaded in the game, the mods will not be there, but they'll be further from where you haven't loaded in any chunks.
Yes, that's
something to keep in mind.
Yeah, it's definitely something to consider. Although it is possible to go in and flush chunks around the chunks that you want to keep. Not going to go into detail about that, but if you've explored basically thousands and thousands of chunks, it is possible to do that. Just putting that out there. If you add in a mod that has world gen things to it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's really complicated. I have a friend who knows how to do it, but yeah.
Another thing to keep in mind is, so what happens if you add in a mod, and this mod has been something that you really liked and you really wanted to add into your roleplay, but as soon as you add it into your roleplay, it works. It doesn't crash the server, but some strange things start happening that shouldn't necessarily be. For instance, I actually did have a mod on one of my role plays that would put tropical fish in the water. That was the good part, and I was enjoying that. It's just what I realized is that there would be some areas in Minecraft that would be called rivers by region, but they actually had no water. And I'd see all these fish literally just struggling for life, spawning in the river that has no water. So not only that, but they also added a ton of lag. So I had to actually go in, and in those cases, you have to basically just go in and just, sadly, if you can't figure out a way around it that doesn't prevent any lag, you might have to just get rid of the mod.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part. Luckily, there are a lot of mods out there for a lot of different versions of the game that are specifically for increasing the quality of the game and how your computer runs it. One of the most well-known versions of this being Optifine, for more of the kind of earlier versions of the game, all the way up to the latest, and some newer versions of it, actually. Have you heard of, like, what is it called again? Like sodium and magnesium and ones like that?
No, I haven't. Are those for, like, Beyond 1.15?
Yeah, they're for more recent versions of the game, so if you're building your pack in a more recent version, consider those, because from my own personal experience, they're actually way, way better than Optifine in the later versions of the game, which is kind of crazy.
Yes, because I do have to say, for whatever reason, when I started trying to play later versions of Minecraft after, like, 1.10, I would notice the lag spike, which would cause for me to have to put Optifine as like a major mod to add whenever I was making any Minecraft roleplays because of just the lag.
Yeah, for sure. It's probably because as the game progresses through the versions, moving on from like 1.7 to 1.8, 1.9, 1.10, and all the way up to 1.18 as we're recording this, they're adding more and more things to the base game, which means that the game is heavier and heavier, which is just kind of how Minecraft goes a lot. So that's also another thing to consider when you're thinking about adding mods, is what version of the game you're going for and how both stable is that version, but also how heavy is that version. It's one of the most stable versions of the game out, as far as I'm aware, was 1.12, which is the one we're currently in. But it's also 1.12, meaning there's a lot more in the base game than there was in, say, 1.7. So that's another thing to consider when adding mods.
True, because like 1.8, 1.7.10, and 1.12.2 seem to be very good versions for mods. So you definitely have to look into how mod heavy, basically how many mods can you find in one specific version. Because if you start in 1.9 and you want to have one specific mod, you'll have to like understand first, which is, okay, which versions generally have the most mods, so then you could have more to choose from.
There tends to be a fairly heavy modding focus around 1.7.10 and 1.8 and 1.8.9, but actually in more recent years there's also a lot more focus on updating mods for 1.16 and up as well, so that's one thing to consider. There's not very many mods to be able to find kind of between those versions, with the exception of 1.12, because it was a more steady version of the game.
Another actual thing to think about with the correct mods is, for instance, if you're going to make or bring in custom NPCs, which is a very, very useful mod actually, you also have to look into, for instance, in 1.12.2, they added a function where the eyes of the characters, you can make it so that the characters can blink. And another thing is
it doesn't want to blink. Oh, there it goes. Yeah.
Another thing is when you're making characters and skins, things like that, what happened is in the further versions, I'm pretty sure 1.12 was when custom NPCs really made a comeback. Another thing that happened was when you were making files, because I've made many files for skins, when I tried to put them into further versions of Minecraft, I had a problem where it just wouldn't show up, or it would show up weird.
Yeah.
So in 1.7.10, the dimensions are actually 64 by 32. What I'm saying is you only had one arm and one leg. And of course you had no, for instance, in this skin I actually have a whole armor with a hood, I guess is what you call it, a hood over the chest, which would show that there's even more detail. That is not possible in 1.7.10. In 1.8, it allowed for you to have left arm, right arm, so you can do different things with different directions. And the what's it called? The size went from 64 by 32 to 64 by 64. Once you moved into 1.12.2 for custom NPCs, you would have to make sure that everything is actually lowercase. You're adding in skins, which was very weird for me because I would just capitalize the beginning of every sentence. Beginning of every word. But once I did everything lowercase, that actually fixed the problem that I was having, which was that my characters weren't appearing in the game.
Ooh.
So you'll definitely have to be sure to make sure that you add in characters you add in the characters according to the ways that the different versions deal with it. And also make sure that when you have an idea of, okay, I want to have these characters into this roleplay, there's certain things you could do in 1.7.10 that you can't do in 1.8. Or actually, the other way, in the other way around. For instance, NPCs can fly beyond 1.8, but they can't in 1.7.10. When you're considering your roleplay, you should also consider, okay, do I want to have characters that can fly and just go about? Because if so, you'll need beyond 1.7.10, unless you can use additional mods for the custom NPCs mod.
Yeah, that's definitely something to consider. Not just specific what mods you want, but also what versions of the mods that you want, because as you said, they will do different things in different versions as the mods are updated and as well. Thank you everyone so much for watching this episode of Beyond the Roleplay, and something you might notice is, despite it being the first one on this channel, it's actually the second episode, and that's because over on Detailed Creative's channel, we talked about coming up with a good story idea for your roleplay. So if you're interested in that, you should definitely go check it out. And just go check out Detailed Creative's roleplays in general. They're really good, and I find myself really enjoying the story.
Hello. I'm a friendly person. Please come over.
And with that, thank you so much, and we will see you guys later. Bye-bye.
Bye.